close this one out. So once it pops up, then I close this, not the other one. It's not gonna let me.
Do you swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so long as you continue to be a citizen thereof, and that you will faithfully execute to the best of your ability the office of the school board member of the Barberville County Board of Education according to law? And do you further solemnly swear or affirm that since the adoption of the present Constitution, you being a citizen of this state have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within the state or out of it, nor have you sent or accepted a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have you acted as a second and carrying challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offended to help you God? Do you further state that you are eligible under law to serve as a member of the Barberville Independent School Board of Education, and that you will not, while serving as a member of such board, become interested directly or indirectly in any contract with or claim against the board, and that you will not in any way influence the hiring or appointment of district employees, except the hiring of the superintendent of schools or school board attorney? Congratulations.
Welcome, Blair. We're excited to have one board here. One guy, we'll have one guy involved. Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion made by Daniel, second by Monday. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All voting aye. Election of board officers. I have a motion on board officers.
I'll make a motion that we have Debbie, you as our chairman of the board, and Sandy as our vice chair.
Okay, motion made by Williams, second by Daniels. All those in favor, let me say aye. Aye. All voting aye. Okay, set board meeting date and times. Have anything on that? Let's prove it was ever ready. Change or? I think it's been working well. I don't know Blair's schedule on Thursday night. Third Thursday. Third Thursday, 6 o'clock, good time.
So that's the third Thursday of every month at 16.
We have a motion. Okay, motion made by Daniel, second by Lundy. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Actions by consent. Do we have a motion to approve the action by consent? Motion made by Williams, second by Skidmore. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All voting aye. Okay, discuss the 2021-2022 draft budget.
Okay, you don't take any action on this, but the draft budget is just basically the budget we're working under right now, because we have no projection for the coming year, so we will revisit that in May with the TIF budget.
Got any questions or comments?
And that is standard procedure. Sometimes it comes in a little earlier, as you all know, and sometimes it comes in a little later. So with where we are right now in the state with education and everything that's going on, they just don't have anything projected to us.
take action to approve consolidated district improvement plan. CCIP. Jason.
Okay, this is the annual plan that we do every year that's required by the KRS. It has goals for proficiency, your separate academic indicator, transition readiness, graduation rate, and growth. The goals that we have are from the previous year as far as state benchmarks, because we did not do an assessment last year, so those are carried over. But we added an extra goal in this year on growth for ourselves to make sure, you know, how the students are adjusting. And we also added about transitioning into the school year next year. And what we need to do to assess, you know, the students where they'll be, we know that it's gonna be different. And as of right now, we're still gonna be taking the spring assessment based on what the state says, but that's still on hold.
So Ms. Chapin and I talked specifically about the fact that we're not required to add additional goals, but simply relying on where your kids are based on a test that may or may not happen. It's not what we're all about. We're about looking at individual growth for our kids. So they did add those particular goals in there that we would measure kids based on our I-Ready and our certs and the assessments that we do here throughout the year. Even though this year has been quite different, and sometimes the tests are taken on site, and sometimes if they're all virtual, it has to be taken there. We know that there's going to be some validity issues with some of those, but we wanted to be able to gauge where our students were on our own, not necessarily just against the test that may or may not happen. So we want to see continuous growth within our students throughout our district, and that's why that they work so hard to add additional goals beyond the state testing, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Discussion, take action to approve,
Sorry, we
insurance.
need a motion.
We need a,
We need a
okay,
motion.
okay, we got a motion to approve, district improvement plan.
I'll second.
Motion made by Lundy, second by Williams. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. In favor? Okay, discuss, take action to approve COVID emergency days.
Okay, I wanted to ask the board to consider, relief days, not necessarily emergency days, but relief days for teachers who may be quarantined or may test positive and have a positive test result. And the reason I wanted to mention this to you is because before, December the 31st, those days, COVID days were built in part of our packages. So if a teacher had to miss, they didn't have to take their own sick days, and it did not deduct from their sick time. Now, we're in a totally different situation now, because if a teacher can't do their job, then we're having to pay a sub to do that because we're here on site now. So what I'm asking the board is to consider to allow me, and it would have to be at my discretion simply because there's a confidentiality issue about who is quarantined and those kinds of things. But these days would be relief days for teachers who had not had to take days before, that had a positive test or was quarantined themselves. And it's a one-time 10 days only, and it would allow them to work from home, which most of them have already done, and not use their sick days. So if they're working from home in conjunction with the sub that is in the seat to continue the instruction that we think is very important, and we think our teacher delivering that instruction is extremely important, then we would be able to issue a relief day that says, we know you're not on site, we're still having to pay a sub, but we're not going to dock you for your days because you're still doing the work. So it's a little bit of a relief for those people. In addition to that, classified, I would like to ask classified to be included in that as well. And again, it's not, we call it emergency days on here for a better lack of the term, but it's more like a relief day to relieve them from having to take those sick days. It gives them an opportunity to not have to get into their sick days when other people did not have to do that through December the 31st. because those days were there for them. But it would be a one-time, 10-day opportunity. If they could perform their job duty from home, they would not have to take the sick days in order to do that. So it would give them some flexibility there. And in every case that we have, I will say to you that our teachers have done exactly that. They have continued to provide the instruction for the most part because they wanted to. But now that we're back on site, we have to also have someone in the seat with the kids that are on site. So it only makes sense that we should ask for relief days if they're doing the work anyway, but they're quarantined and just not allowed to come to work, that we could allow them to utilize that 10 days. I think before it was 14 days, but now they've changed the quarantine times. So the 10 days of relief should be good. What we have had is we've had some classified people who can't work from home, and we've allowed them to add days to the end of their calendar, or anything we could do to make sure that they could still hang on to those sick days, which is important for them down the road. Especially if they're quarantined and not actually sick, because they could get sick later and have to use some of those. And I just like the board to consider allowing us to do those, to use relief days for those people who did not have an opportunity and have not had this to happen to them since those days have expired. It just kind of levels the playing field, I think, a little bit for those teachers, and it allows our kids to still receive the instruction from their teacher.
Well, I agree. I think that this is, it maintains continuity for the children, have the teachers still present. I think that it's, if you're having a teacher who is still working, even if they're working from home, I don't think you can count that as sick. And so I think this makes a lot of sense. I think if you're in a situation where you can't work because you are sick, you take a sick day at that point. But yes, if you're working from home, you're working with a substitute, then I would be in favor. I think that makes sense.
Will that continue once they've all had the vaccine?
That will continue until 7 days after the opportunity for the last vaccine.
I think that was my question. I agree.
Do you have anything else that you might need to think about or consider? It's really hard, and I would like to ask you to allow me to make that retroactive to January the 1st, because we have had some people who have fallen into the middle of those days, and they did work. So if they have worked, I would like to not have to take their sick days from them, just as we didn't those people that it occurred before the 31st of December. I just think that's fair. They're dealing with a lot, and they've worked extremely hard, and they're the ones that said, we're gonna do this from home. So we talked and felt like that we needed to see if there was a way that we could provide those days to them, and they're willing to work on their own. They would have done it anyway, I have to tell you. Our staff would have done it anyway.
Well, I think it's important for teachers, and it helps prevent teachers from making that decision of, well, I'm gonna go ahead and come in and not say anything because I'm gonna lose my sick days. So
Yes.
it keeps it out of the schools, supports the teachers, keep that confidence. I think it makes sense. I agree. I think it doesn't get retroactive so that it doesn't affect anyone who's impacted by this.
Motion,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
motion made by Seymour, second by Lundy. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Voting aye. Okay, administrative updates. Karen.
Since we've started, our participation rate has dipped a little, not much overall. Our elementary, I went through and just divided it all up. Our elementary is 90.6 participation rate. Our middle school was the worst at 86.2. And our high school, every high school class was above 90%, or 90.9. Overall was right at 90%. With that middle school, I would say, Samantha, is trying to think, most of our home visits have been middle school.
most of my referrals are middle school.
Mr.
Yes.
Terry, since, Mr. Skidmore is new, could you explain to him how that participation rate is calculated?
You are technically counted present in school with any kind of contact with the phone call. Not that necessarily we have been really consistent with that. Our teachers it's mostly your on class, okay, is how we've done it. You can be counted present. I know that it's probably worked better in the elementary, but if you are, any kind of contact at all.
Are we seeing any of the same students from month to month, or is it?
Today was probably, when we got on the buses, probably the biggest in-school crowd we've had for a while. We're trying to get everybody to commit to virtual or being, so they can be consistent.
And that is something we talked about as an administrative team even today, or several of us, that, right now, we are holding, because our numbers, our positivity rate is still very large, but it's really hard for us to know from one day to the other who's gonna show up and who isn't. So it's hard for us to bring those people back that want to come every day, because, you know, we might have room in the fourth grade, but the sibling in the sixth grade, there's no room in that classroom, and us still be able to social distance. So there's a lot of logistics that we're working out with that, and we're gonna give it some time. Our hope is that by the time that last vaccine is given to our, educators, that we will be able to completely consider seeing how many people want to be back in a seat on the same day, and seeing if the guidelines have shifted any, so that would give us some flexibility. We will not come back and not meet guidelines. You guys know that. You've told us that, and that's what we've always done. We're very strict on those guidelines. So we can't bring everybody back right now, because we never know. On Monday, if we've got 12 that's supposed to be in that room, Monday they'll come. But on Wednesday, there may only be 10. So we can't tell 2 people to come on Wednesday, because there's a lot of that unknown. So we're really struggling with how. And if we tell people that if you choose virtual, you have to stay virtual, that's a hard decision too. So we're trying to work with the logistics of that, but we felt like with our positivity rate so high right now, and until we get that second injection and that vaccine for our staff, that we're probably better off to stick with the hybrid schedule, so that we can be 100% positive that we're meeting all guidelines in all classes.
Today was a blue day, sixth grade was full, and by full, I mean in 12 or more.
Ninth grade's on Thursday. Well, we have ninth grade on Thursday. That's our honors English and our honors geometry that is so full that we can't keep them in the classroom. We put them in the library, or we have a classroom set up over here for them. And that's just on the rotation, so.
We had sixth grade was 12 or more, eighth grade was 12 or more, ninth grade was 12 or more, and I think I had 11 seniors.
The most we can fit in the classroom.
Because you don't have consistency grade level to grade level, and for households that may have more than one child, it's even more. You know, you can bring 2 of them on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but you can't bring the other one. So we're trying to kind of work through that, but we're giving it some time, because of positivity rate.
And the other freshman class that will be here, the right thing class that will be here tomorrow, like 16 freshmen.
Most we can fit in the classrooms and social distance is 14.
So
That's
there's a
biggest
lot to
question.
work out with it. We're hopeful that we'll get to do that soon for those who want to be in a seat 5 days, but there's a lot of planning and unknowns behind that from day to day that's really hard to plan around.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Terry. Mr. Milton?
Okay, we talked a little bit about just class sizes and things that's going on in the class, and trying to get students here, and some of the difficulties that we have as far as what Mr. Terry and Ms. Daniels just talked about with home visits and having participation rate. One thing that we try to do, and that we do, is we like to see the how we monitor the continued student growth. So, you know, in talking with my teachers, I talk with my teachers, periodically, quite often, actually, about how things are going in class, how they monitor that student growth. Some of the things that we do to monitor continued student growth is, of course, through the teacher conferences that they have. You know, they conference back and forth with these kids, all the time. They have, of course, the grade book where they monitor that with assessments, classroom work, quizzes. But one thing that we've used, we went through at the beginning of the year, we take an rating test. And that places a student on a certain level at the beginning of the year. Well, we take another one, we've taken our second round, and that's something that they use to monitor that growth, where they can grow from and how students have grown as far as their growth with their academics and their content. And then the teachers actually break that down and look and try to find barriers as to what's causing either the lack of growth or not as much growth as we would like to see in that. So it's something that teachers, they really, and I'll just reiterate this, and all of our administrators can say this, our teachers are working hard. They absolutely are. You know, I'll go in a classroom, Mr. Messer or Mr. Carey or Ms. Chafin, and remember, we'll go in a classroom, if we go in a classroom and sit down, and it's a hybrid day, they're back and forth between somebody in that classroom and that computer. The other day in the math class, I sat in the math class, and the teacher was working with a student in the classroom, asked a question, that student in the classroom, well, student from home answered. And so she had to go from there to over there. So they're really working hard, and I think they're just doing an exceptional job. But that's one thing that we want to continue to do, is monitor that continual student growth and try to identify those barriers that may be prohibiting those students from making the growth that they need to. As far as the other side of things, the athletic side of things, February is going to be a full month. We're trying to condense everything into. We got a couple extra weeks in March before the postseason play starts, but in February here at home, you can just about pick in and out of the week and come out and there'll be a ball game here in February. Whether either a boys game or a girls game, we've got 13 scheduled, 2 more we need to add, so it's 15 games out of 20 possible days that you can play Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Our boys are actually scheduled to play in the All-A finals against Harlan. That is right now. It's set for February the 1st to be played at Harlan. The girls, of course, they're in full season as well. They've played all their games with the exception of one, and it was a visiting team who had to cancel because of that. This past Saturday, we had our first wrestling match. Board voted a few months back to allow us to start a wrestling team. We had our first wrestling match. It's something to see. It's absolutely something to see and be a part of. It was our school, Barberville, Knox Central, Frederick Douglass, Madison Southern, and Wayne County. So, and we did well. We did well. It's an all-day thing. It's something that I'm really, I hope it picks up and goes with. I hope there's a lot of other kids get interested in it, because it's a good sport, and it's a good, I don't want to call it bonding, but a building of relationships with other kids. And I'll say this, our coach actually coaches Knox Central's team, and one of the things that he posted, and I didn't have Facebook, but somebody showed it to me, and I noticed it there. Mr. Carey was there and saw it. When our boys was out there wrestling, those students from Knox Central was cheering them on just like it was their own. They practiced together, and they had the same coach together, and that was just something to really see them coming together and doing that. So if you get the opportunity to come out, there's another one Wednesday night. It'll be over at Knox Middle School, Wiggly County, McQuarrie County, and us and Knox Central will be there for that. So that went really well. We will be hosting the 51st District Basketball Tournament this year. I've got a meeting scheduled for February the 21st with all the coaches and ADs of the 51st District to go over some specifics on how we're going to do things. I got to get some more guidance and input from KHSAO on how we need to do that. That
term will actually start on March the 15th. It's a couple days later, so that'll give us about a month to get ready for district play. And the last thing is we've tried, and we've got some little league, third and fourth grade, fifth and sixth grade, and some middle school boys basketball games that we fortunate enough to try to get scheduled. We've got several scheduled for the 3 through 16, and in middle school they played a couple already. He's got 2 or 3 more scheduled to play. So we was lucky enough to get at least some games in for them. Their season was wiped out in the fall of the year. So that's all I have. Any questions about anything?
Just one thing about already, since some of our parents are tuning in, the kids that have taken it from home, I've noticed some comments, and I've talked to some parents about it taking so long. Well, the longer it takes, the better your child is doing. The longer it takes, the more difficult it is. And so that's kind of how the test goes. It's adaptive. So the better you do, the more questions you have, and it really pushes you and challenges you. So I want to kind of get that out there for parents to understand that that's a good thing. The longer it takes, that means it's more difficult and there's more questions for your child there. So that's why you see the difference in the time frame. And it does move as the child moves. It gauges, where they were the last time. That's where it starts them, and it's adaptive from that point on. So the longer the better for the IRA test.
I have to make a call. My granddaughter and my sister's granddaughter both are in school, and I've talked to several parents too. And mostly the elementary, I understand a lot of people are having problems with their middle school children, but the elementary, and I'm sure it's the same with the middle school, but the job our teachers are doing is simply amazing. Focusing on the core content and the skills and the different strategies they're using, and they are just amazing. They are amazing.
They are terrific. I will say that they are one of the very few school districts we are in the whole state that have been live virtual instruction from the very first day. They have only had a couple Wednesdays when we did the power up session that they actually did not do both. And it's very hard to manipulate, as Mr. Middleton said, and they're very tired. I will say they're very tired because they never stop between what they're doing on the screen and trying to get the interaction with the kids in a seat and trying to pull in the kids that are actually virtual. It's a very hard and challenging thing, and they have leaped to the top. We're very, very proud of them. And like I said, we've had them that have tested positive for COVID, and they've talked straight through it. And those that have been quarantined, particularly, like we're going to teach our classes. They have a pride in doing that themselves and continuing that, and we're very appreciative of that. And I'm glad that you've noticed it as a grandparent.
Yeah, I think our teachers really need to be commended for the job they're doing. It's been amazing, and I think a lot of the parents in our community are very appreciative.
And we've got a lot of positive feedback for our teachers. I appreciate that. They will too.
Thank you. Mr. Mercer. Adding to that, I talked to my daughter today, and she's done good on hers. Both my kids have. But she told me tonight, she said, "Daddy, I'm ready to go back to school." I said, we may not be able to do that just yet. I have elderly parents and everything, but I said, everybody's ready to go back to school. We're all ready for COVID to be over. And I think we're just a little more patient. We're getting people vaccinated here at school. Teachers are going to feel safer. I'll feel safer. So hopefully August 1, Tiger tip off, that gym's full, this gym's full, and we're back to as normal as we can get in these times. But our kids, like you guys have said, our teachers have went above and beyond. I've noticed other districts have started doing what we're doing. They're following our lead now. And it's good for their kids. But I mean, as far as these teachers, I was thinking about, they're teaching 2 different classrooms. They're teaching an online community and
someone sitting in it, and that's tough, and we know that. But, like we've said, I've not heard them complain. They show up every day. We don't have to call subs. And we will make it through all this. It's just gonna take some time. One thing Ms. Dixon and I are working on is we have some COVID funds coming for our HVAC, air quality, maybe putting some things in our ductwork to kind of kill viruses, germs like that. So that's something we're going to try to do in the near future in all our buildings. But we're just in the planning phases on that. Our classroom, our cafeteria, we're still feeding all our virtual students on day, and we're sending food home when they show up. So I'm sure they get up. I saw all the kids carrying a bag out today. So we're still feeding them. We're staying socially distanced, although we'll still hug them if they want to hug. But that's what we're here. I mean, a lot of our kids don't have the adult in their life to say, good job, we care about you. And when they come to this school, we care about them. And what happens after they leave, we try to help all we can. But I think we've done a good job. I think we've got a lot to be proud about, and hopefully we'll move on and get back in the classroom soon.
Our cafeteria staff, Ms. Amy Collins, and our cafeteria staff and our custodial staff have done wonders. Every day, they're in there getting meals for all of our kids, and as he said, they rotate. If you're virtual all the time, you still get meals sent home. You can pick meals up and things like that on certain days. They're still doing that. There's not been a day that they've not offered meals for kids. So, and Dennis works very closely with them and does a really good job with that. And Amy's just phenomenal. She's in there picking herself every day too, trying to pick up any slack. We are still down a person in there, 3 now, which we'll make it work. So they're doing a really good job.
Good, thank you, Mr. Messer. Ms. Daniels.
I'm just gonna touch base back on something Mr. Carey said about our kids that we are getting referrals on. Each week, I send out an email to the teachers and they send back referrals for those kids that are either not participating or they show up every day and they just don't do their homework. Because mom will say, oh, he's on there every day. And I'm like, well, he's not turned in one paper. So I call every student that I get a referral on each week. Sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 100 every week. So, and then if we can't get a hold of those, Mr. Carey and myself go to their homes, we knock on the doors, we try everything we can do to get those kids participating. And it's consistently the same students. So, but we are keeping up with that. We are also sending home backpack snack interest forms again, trying to make sure we get food back into our houses for our kids. So those will go out again this week, just to see if we have any that's not already getting. And then we are working on some programming to help our students with some mental health concerns. We had a FRISC meeting recently, and it seems like across the board, that's what everybody's concerned about with these kids. They're not getting out, they're not around people, they're stuck at home. So we're looking for some programming to help those kids virtually and even the ones that get to come back. And we were expecting an 8% budget cut for us, but we got good news. We have no cuts, so I have extra money for that programming and anything our students may need. So that's a blessing. And then we have a blood drive scheduled for last month. Again, no success with that, but we did reschedule. So hopefully we'll get to do that and get that scholarship back in here, because if we get enough units of blood, we get a $1,000 scholarship. So I'm working on that, and hopefully that'll pan out. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Ms. Shaker.
Going back kind of to the CSIP and CDIP, with the iReady, that is an untimed assessment, and we're kind of all over the board right now because the students have to take a reading and a math. So until every student maxes out that adaptive test, I can't really give you results on that yet. But the high school took the first CERT test today, and I had to send a text to Ms. Dixon because I was so excited. That is a timed ACT that our students feel is actually more difficult than the real ACT. In the last 2 years that we've used that program, that has proved true. From the virtual kids and the blue kids that took the test today, 73% of the freshmen showed improvement. So I was very excited about that. 68% of the sophomores and 92% of the juniors showed some kind of gain in the overall composite score. So I think that's excellent. And from the Gear Up grant, I'm excited to announce that obviously that grant has been limited as far as the activities and things they can do this year. This is the last year for that grant, and they have given us permission to purchase a Chromebook for all seniors. So that will be given to them to take with them on to college after graduation. So we're in the process of doing that right now, getting bids.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
First favor, Dave, second, Williams. All those in favor, say aye. We're adjourned.
Mr. Chambers, I need to speak.